Hey everyone, I'm Joe and today I'm going to be doing my May 2017 reading wrap-up. May was a really good reading month. I read 15 books in total, which is not quite as much as the previous few months, but frankly 15 books is still really impressive and I don't really care if I read 18 or 15, it's still good. Reading any books is better than no books. Anyway, I read a good variety of genres overall, and I will start off with the series that I am currently reading through, and then I'll go on to the unique individual books. So the first series is 3, and that is The Moor, O Jerusalem, and Justice Hall, all by Laurie R. King. This is book 4, 5 and 6 in the Mary Russell and Sherlock Holmes series. Now Laurie R. King has created a world a lot around Sherlock Holmes, which is an alternative to Doyle's world. In this is that Sherlock Holmes has retired in the first book and he's become a beekeeper. He encounters a young girl called Mary Russell, whom he realises he has an affinity with. Their minds and the way they think are very much similar and they get on really well. And they realise as well that they can solve crimes together rather well, because Sherlock Holmes in the first book is starting to become a bit weird, frankly, because he's not dealing with crime anymore, and that's his great love of his life. And now Mary Russell has sort of rekindles his interest in crime and solving things, and together they go on a series of adventures, basically solving crime. These are crime mystery books. They are extremely well written. The plot lines of them, which I'm not going to go into because there's 3 of them and I could take all day to talk about it, are really interesting and varied and really quite fun. The characters are fantastic. The world is familiar, but it's not quite what you'd expect in some ways. She does create her own world. She's not just trying to copy Doyle. And I have never read Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. However, now that I've actually got into crime mystery rather more heavily, as in the last 6 months or so, and indeed into these, I will probably be reading, or at least trying to read, Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock at some point, possibly towards the end of the year. These are books 4, 5 and 6, however, and there are currently 15 of them, so it will take me another 4 months to read these. Once I've read the series, I will do a series overview, I think, of some kind. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing yet because there's so many of them, but there'll be something anyway. The next 2 books are Summer Lightning and Castle Blandings and Elsewhere by P.G. Wodehouse. This is a normal 4-length Blandings novel, and this is a short story collection. The first half of this is set around the Castle Blandings, and the second half is set in the same time period, but it's set in sort of the golden years of Hollywood, basically. Now, they are both classed as humour, and they are very much English humour. The idea of Blandings is that it is about Lord Emsworth, who is a bumbling, forgetful English lord. He lives in his big country home, obviously called Castle Blandings. And this is basically of adventures or misadventures, often and nearly always involving at least one character, if not more, pretending to be somebody else in order to either steal off somebody or to generally sort of try and woo their object of affection. There is each book has got a young pretty girl in it who generally knows her own mind more than the male characters. The male characters are generally fairly stupid and incompetent in many respects, and they're just well written, really funny, and the world of Blandings is one that I wouldn't have ever expected 10 years ago I'd ever even looked at twice, and now I'm actually enjoying them more than I could say. However, this second book, the first half of it in Castle Blandings and Elsewhere is good, but it's the and elsewhere part, however, because the second half of the book is set completely unrelated to Blandings, and I didn't like it at all. It was actually terrible. So basically, if you like the Blandings, then you'll still want to read this book, but basically only read the first half, because that's the only Blandings part. The second half is not Blandings at all, and it's just forget the second half of the book, frankly. Next up, I have an ebook which I read on my Kindle, and that is Memory by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is a science fiction book set in Bujold's Vukozigan Saga. The Vukozigan Saga is, as of the moment, based around 16 books. Now, this book is varied depending on the number, depending on whether you're reading it in publication order, the internal chronological order, or the author's recommended order. I'm reading it kind of an author's recommended order, although I've made a few very slight mistakes with that order, so I will read them. Basically, I'm halfway. This is the 8th book in the Vukozigan that I've read, and yet again, it's another one that I think is fantastic. Lois McMaster Bujold so far has not let me down once. I've read like 12 books from her now in the last 6 months alone, and I'm loving everything I've read by her. Her science fiction is brilliant because it has great characters, great worlds, brilliant plot lines, and the writing is just subtle but extremely good, and it's also got a lot of humour throughout the book as well. It's got a very interesting type of humour which I greatly appreciate. The book is set around the Vukozigan family. This book in particular is set around Miles Vukozigan, who is a heavily recurring character. He's a quick-witted and very intelligent guy. He has a disability in the book from a terrorist attack before he was even born, in fact when his mom was pregnant with him, and he uses his mind rather than his body to achieve things. And it's this big empire, the Vor Empire, on this one planet, and this book is based around his boss, basically. Something happens to his boss, Simon Ilian, and it's intricate and well crafted, and frankly I really enjoyed it thoroughly, and I really recommend you start the Vukozigan Saga preferably today because they are frankly fantastic. If you're going to start with them, then start with the very first published book, which I couldn't remember the name off the top of my head, which I should have wrote down really, but anyway, start with the first book. Plus I will do a series overview of the Vukozigan Saga once I've finished, which at the rate I'm reading them probably won't be far, frankly. Next up, I read the Greg Mandel trilogy by Peter F. Hamilton, which normally goes there, by the way, so you might have guessed which author it's going to be. And the books that this comprises is Mind Star Rising, A Quantum Murder, and The Nano Flower. Now this is a science fiction thriller series. This is one of Peter F. Hamilton's extremely early series. These were written in 95, 96, 97 I think, or could be 1 or 2 years later than that, but not much. And the earliness of the books compared to the fact he's been writing for more than 20 years now, you can tell though, because his writing has evolved since then and become what it is today. However, it is still, and this is what I was a little wary of, I thought maybe because it was an early book, these would be quite different and his style would have evolved into what it is nowadays, which I really enjoy, and these might have been a kind of a different style and I might not have enjoyed them. Frankly, that is not the case because these are fantastic. I really enjoyed these. Greg Mandel is a sort of gland psychic. He has a sort of this gland in his head, which basically means he can sort of sense emotions, and he can basically be a human lie detector, as well as a few other mild abilities to do with this as well. And indeed, the first book is related to the actual what he is, because Mindstar is actually the name of a military unit, the Mindstar Brigade, which he joined and made him into what he is. And in the books, it's all to do with this big company who employs him to try and find out some sort of intrigue that's going on within it in the first book. And he deals with this big company in all 3 books in different ways. And it mixes both the science fiction and the thriller elements really well. They're well written. The characters are generally, for the whole, quite good. Obviously, there are a few characters that are a bit more stereotypical and a bit more sort of placed there just for plot lines. But yeah, when you're dealing with as many characters as Hamilton generally deals with, which you can tell by later books, it's to be expected. It's forgivable because the books are fun, they're well written, the characters actually feel relatively real despite the setting and the world, and I just really like these books. I am going to be doing a review of this trilogy in the next few weeks, or at least next month, so I'm not going to say anything more now, but yeah, I greatly enjoyed this trilogy. Now we get on to the non-series books, or at least the non-continuing series, and the first is the first book in a trilogy, and indeed it is just a reread, and that is Barricade by John Wallis. Now I read this same book last year, an ebook, which I got for free at the time, and I read it and really enjoyed it. However, I recently was given the third book by the publisher Gollancz, and this first book was extraordinarily cheap as well, so I thought, well, why not get the whole trilogy, which I now have, and I'm working my way through the whole trilogy, and indeed by the time you see this I may have already read the trilogy, I'm not sure, but I will do a review of the trilogy as a whole again in the next few weeks or next month, so I'm not going to say too much now. But first to say, it is a science fiction sort of dystopian type world. There are reals and fischls. Fischls are very much almost human, but they've got basically nanite technology in them, and they are really, really strong, fast. You know, they can generally, they're kind of like androids, kind of, but not exactly. And the plot line is something I'm not going to go into too much now, but suffice to say, it is more thoughtful than you'd think for the type of book it is. You know, it's sort of science fiction dystopian, and it's more quite action based. You'd expect it to be more obvious, but it's actually more intricate than that. And I really do enjoy these books. I'm greatly looking forward to reading the whole trilogy. Like I said, or I may have read it by the time you're watching this, and I will greatly look forward to making a review of this trilogy because it's a really good trilogy, at least start of one so far, and I would highly recommend it. The next book is also by Gollancz, and actually this was sent to me at Christmas by Gollancz as well, and it's the start of another trilogy by them, and that is Robotia by Alex Lamb. Now this is yet again another science fiction book. This time the Robotia is a guy who can interface essentially with a ship's systems in a really unusual and really interesting way. Although I say it's not truly unique in terms of overall books, because obviously interfacing with technology in books is a fairly familiar concept by this point. But in this book he does do it extremely well and extremely thoughtfully written. And the book is actually really good overall. I'm really looking forward yet again to reading the second and third books, which I may or may not have started by the time you're watching this, I don't know yet. But the plot is good, the way the world works is good, and the thing I didn't expect from this book, I mean, the cover's kind of quite dark and sort of quite serious, but there's actually a lot of humour in these books. I mean, yes, there's death and there's a lot of pain and sort of darkness, but there's a surprisingly large amount of humour in the books as well, which I didn't expect from this kind of book, to be honest. I thought it would be more sort of action based and slightly less humour, but I'm glad I'm wrong, because it really did, it made it sort of stand above other books, frankly, of its sort of peer group. And indeed, this book, I can't help thinking that this is a mix between Alistair Reynolds, very slightly, and Peter F. Hamilton. And as you know I like Hamilton and indeed Reynolds, because I've got his books literally behind me here. So yeah, I would recommend this. But I'll do a trilogy review anyway soon enough. Next up is Reading the Bones by Sheila Finch. I read this on Kindle, so I have no physical book to show you. Now this is based around the Xenolinguistics Guild. This is a guild which, as you can probably guess, focuses on communication and language between alien races. Now on this one world, this one guy, the main character, at least at the start of the book, he was an up-and-coming linguist. However, he fell on hard times, basically, and he's now working as an interpreter for a rich family, and when they go out and do shopping with the local markets and that kind of thing, and he sort of feels as though he's sort of wasting his life at the moment, his skills which he thinks are suitable. And the book goes from there. I can't say too much about the plot because there's a significant change in the book from the point of view, and indeed the focus of the main character does change away from him at one point significantly. But suffice to say, it was extremely well written, it was very thoughtful. If you like linguistics, language and communication, then I would really recommend this book, because this is just as good as anything by Ursula Le Guin, which, as you may know, Ursula Le Guin is known for talking about sort of language and communication between people, and this is frankly equal to it without failure. Man, this is fantastic, really well written, intricate, subtle when it had to be, really in your face when it needs to as well. Great characters, the plot is nuanced and thoughtful, and frankly, as you can tell, I like this book a lot. I haven't rated it yet, I don't think, or if I have, I gave it a really good rating, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I would really recommend this book very heavily indeed. Next up, I read yesterday's Kin by Nancy Kress. This, yet again, like the previous one, Reading the Bones, is a short science fiction novel which I read on my Kindle. Unlike that novel though, this is about a completely different subject, although it does feature aliens though, and that is, aliens have come to New York. They've come down in their giant spaceship and are now hovering over New York Harbour. They are communicating with humans, and they're basically inviting humans aboard their spaceship to try and work on a solution to an oncoming disaster. There is some sort of weird intergalactic sort of plague, like spores floating through the cosmos, and the direction it's currently floating in, according to aliens, is going to be hitting Earth within 10 months. So now humans and indeed the aliens need to work together and try and figure out how to solve the problem of this essentially interstellar plague, as it appears to be, or at least that's what it appears from the aliens. Yeah, again, it does focus a bit on communication and sort of talking between different cultures, because of course it's a completely alien culture. The focus is not entirely on that though. In this, it's more about not just communication but culture, understanding, the cultural understanding of between the humans and the aliens are very different. You don't see the aliens very much in the book, although they are always there, and the way the humans and the aliens interact is really quite interesting and not something I've come across that often, frankly. So I would very heavily recommend this book because it's thoughtful and frankly very well written, and I was just really glad that I actually read this. It was fairly unknown to me beforehand, but I'm glad I read it because it was good. The last two books I'm going to be talking about are the two books that I read as part of my SFF award-winning book project, and the first of them is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. I mentioned Le Guin earlier in the video, and now I'm going to actually read a full book by her. The Left Hand of Darkness is an extremely well-known book by Le Guin. It's probably actually the most well-known of her books, and indeed is an extremely well-known science fiction book in general. It is a classic, and it has had many people talk about it in very many ways, and indeed it won multiple awards at the time when it was released. This is a new edition published in Gollancz. This is part of the Yellow Spine SF Masterworks, which, as you may have noticed before, and indeed as everybody frankly knows by now, I'm a big fan of. And this is a beautiful edition. It has a yin and yang symbol as well, and you can't see as well, maybe, I'm not entirely sure how well it's picking up. We've got two people crossing the ice, pulling a pack behind them, and that is indeed one of the events in this, because it is based on one guy. He's a linguist and a sort of translator, essentially, to put it simply. He goes down to this world. It's basically he's trying to make first contact with this world on behalf of the rest of the planets, which is in this big sort of confederation, and sort of try and prepare them basically for joining, if they want to, be this sort of interstellar group of planets. And I can't talk about this frankly in this video because there's too much to it and it's too complex and there's too many nuances to talk about. Frankly, it'll take me all day, and this video is already going to be long as it is. But I am really glad I read this book because the ideas in it are fantastic. The writing is yet again for Le Guin brilliant. It had moments where it made me think of other books by Le Guin, which I didn't quite enjoy as much. Like at one point there's a slight moment where it makes me think of Always Coming Home, which is a book I read only last year by her, and I didn't particularly enjoy that book, frankly. But this does it in a slightly different way at this particular moment, and it works out okay though, which I'm glad of, because I wanted to like this book, and I did. And I'm so glad of that, because Le Guin is the kind of author that, at least for me, that I want to like her, and as yet I have managed to do that pretty much, apart from the one book. So I'm very happy that I've yet again found another book by her that I like. And finally, the last book that I read was Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I think I've heard it pronounced that way. Anyway, now this won the Arthur C. Clarke Award last year in 2016. This is a fairly biggish book, actually, surprisingly, considering most of the books I've read this month were fairly small, so this is actually probably the second largest, or joint largest actually. This is a very interesting novel. This is quite simply, at the start of the book, there is essentially what is now, well, sort of quite popular as of in the last few years, a generation ship travelling away from Earth. The Earth is basically sort of being devastated, and generation ships are sort of going out to the stars to see other worlds and sort of carry on humanity amongst the stars. But I've got a kind of an oldish idea by current standards, although it's obviously still not that old, obviously by overall standards, of course. And this generation ship, they're heading to a planet that they know is already there due to an earlier probe, and there is an experiment set up where it should have sort of partially sort of terraformed the planet to their or humanity's liking, and it has, but the planet has kind of become inhabited as such by others. That's all I'm going to say. And humans then have problems because the way this planet is inhabited is not ideal for humans, but they've been on this journey for a very long time indeed, and it's not exactly easy for them to try and deal with what's on the planet. I can't say too much because I will spoil the book, because it's split into 8 distinct sections, although the 8th is frankly just sort of kind of like more like an epilogue. Frankly, so it's really 7, and each one is quite distinctive, and each section is split between the human's point of view and the native planet's inhabitants' point of view. I can't even say what their point of view is, because it's surprising. Frankly, I'm not used to reading books with a point of view based on this thing. I can't even use the normal words to describe it, because I really won't give away plot points if I say too much. But it was well written, highly peculiar and unpredictable. I really didn't know what to expect from this book, but I'm really glad I read it, because it was very interesting. It really was. It goes in ways you don't expect, and reading the back of the book doesn't give away the main plot points. Sometimes the synopsis can give away significant points. This doesn't. This actually almost goes the opposite way. This actually describes it in a way that makes you think it's going to go focus on a different area, and then it switches and goes in something else, which I liked, and I greatly liked this book. And if you want to read an award-winning book, and it won awards for good reason, I think, then I would recommend it, because it was definitely quite interesting, and I quite like the cover as well, by the way. So, anyway, so that's it for all the books I've read, 15 total, and I enjoyed pretty much all of them. They were all at least good, if not excellent. If you've read any of these or would like to read any of them, then please leave a comment and we can have a discussion. If you have any book recommendations for me based on what I've just waved around on screen, then again leave a comment. Or if you'd like me to recommend something to you, based on whatever book you would like to suggest, then you say so as well, and I'll do what I can. Obviously I can't promise anything, because I'm not all knowing. I've only read a relatively small amount of science fiction compared to what's out there. And with that said, that is it for this video. All my social media links can be found in the description box below. And that is it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you another day. Bye for now.